My name is Dave Hollenbach, the host of From Embers to Excellence, a podcast that explores the many facets of leadership from the perspectives of some amazing people. We discuss the triumphs and failures that have shaped our lives and our leadership philosophies. I've found that it isn't whether we fail that defines us, but when we do fail, how we respond. Leaders dust off the ashes and use their failures as fuel to work harder and as lessons to come back wiser and stronger, more resilient, more determined, and more committed to excellence. Today I'm speaking with Fred Rutman, also known as Repeatedly Dead Fred. He is a certified marketing specialist, intermittent faster and coach, death and brain trauma survivor. And we're going to talk about this. He died 29 times, and he's currently writing his medical trauma memoir titled The Summer I Died 29 Times. Now, currently he's living in Toronto, marketer, consultant. He's in academia. I've got a lot of questions for him, and I want to really dig in. So, Fred, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk with me. We've been playing tag, it seems, but I really appreciate you being patient and finally getting to talk with you. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about your book and the summer that you died 29 times.
Well, the book is sort of the compilation of everything that happened to me between roughly 2009, when this medical adventure started, and I guess till 2018, when I had one of my last surgeries. I started passing out randomly, or that's what the doctors thought initially. What it turned out to be was I have something called a severe heart block, and that means the electrical system in my heart that tells it when to beat started dying and then completely died. So what was happening is my heart was stopping, and your heart stops, your blood pressure goes to zero, and you collapse. And if you're lucky, you collapse in bed or onto something soft. I didn't collapse on something soft. I hit my head pretty much every time. So I sustained concussions and post-concussion syndrome and everything like that. It took them about 4 months to figure out that this is what was happening to me. So I was clinically dead 20 times, and which means your heart stops and you stop breathing. And combined with the head trauma, I was pretty messed up. So they gave me a pacemaker to allegedly clear this up, and the pacemaker works great until it doesn't. and I've had numerous pacemaker failures, and I've had to have 3 subsequent follow-up surgeries and replacements, and it's just been a mess. So it's fighting through that.
Well, so let's go back. I want to get like a sense of who you are, your background, and really kind of lead us through what you're most passionate about and how these experiences disrupted your life, but ultimately shaped your life into what it is now. So, where were you born and raised to start off someplace?
So I'm a typical Canadian. I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Played a lot of hockey because that's the law in Canada. You have to play a lot of hockey. Played football, played college rugby, and went into sales, and ultimately did an MBA and went into marketing. And at the time, 20 years ago, I thought that was my passion. I was going to be the world's greatest marketer and, change companies and change the world. And, I was very passionate about that. And I was passionate about giving back to the community and doing a lot of volunteer work. And then I moved to Toronto just before 9/11. And I think just like COVID's doing now, 9/11 changed everybody's world and changed career paths and went into academia. But, this whole life cycle of all these surgeries and everything, it totally, I went on permanent disability because of it. I couldn't hold a job. My memory was gone. I've been speaking Hebrew since I was 5 years old. It totally knocked the language out of my head. Like my depth perception was gone, my balance was gone, my memory was gone. Much like some people are having some long haul COVID symptoms, and you just don't understand it. And people didn't. There was no roadmap for coming back from something like this because, to be honest, most people have never been through something like this.
Yeah.
And having gone through all these recoveries and then finding a tool to help me, my passion has now become helping people who have maybe not gone through something similar, but have gone through their own trauma and have their own constant anxiety and health problems, and promoting an attitude and a possible solution that can help them get back on their feet to some degree.
When all of this started occurring, and they were diagnosing you with syncope, syncopal episodes, correct? I mean, that's what they thought it was you fainting?
Yeah, they thought I was having a heart attack. So, everybody has their own points of bias and cognitive dissonance and things like that. So they see overweight, middle-aged white guy, not eating the greatest, not exercising enough. So they think you're having a heart attack. But, after the 10th time you've run the test, it shows I'm not having a heart attack. You should probably try moving on to something else and looking for something else. But they didn't until we caught what was happening to me on tape. So now, of course, it's on digital, but back then it was on tape.
So, and are you married and you've got kids, or?
No, I'm single.
You're single? Okay.
Yeah.
So back then, I mean, did you have a significant other? Because I'm trying to imagine how this really disrupted your life, because professionally and personally, I'm sure it was pretty disruptive.
Oh, for sure. I haven't been back to work since this happened. So my version of work now is writing my book and doing podcasts to promote my book and awareness of intermittent fasting. To be honest, that's pretty much my passion because it's been so powerful in helping me heal. Financially, it's been devastating. So I burned through most of my savings, and it's been tough. Fortunately, I've got a great community from my religious community, and I'm actually a pretty nice guy, so people seem to want to help me. But I'd come out of the hospital and people would be cooking me meals for months. They'd be taking me to doctor's appointments, anything I needed. My community stepped up and provided. It's just been phenomenal. And there's I don't know if this is a Malcolm Gladwell thing or what the source is, but your personality and behaviors are the sum of the 5 or 7 or how many people you spend the most time with. And I'm very gifted that I surrounded myself with really world quality people, like just the nicest, the most caring, the most giving, the smartest. And it's just it's like taking the best supplement in the world. They're just feeding your system and helping you be the best person you can be.
Now, you mentioned fasting, and I take it that that is one of the things that you've been doing to improve your health and using to overcome with uh, the the pacemaker. I mean, is there anything other than the fasting and the pacemaker that you've been doing, medications, or um, I'm just trying to wrap my head around everything that you've had to do to overcome this. um, I mean, geez, because it's not just the heart issue. You've had brain trauma. You've
Yes.
gone without oxygen. So the the lack of oxygen, that's one form of brain injury, and then impact injury. Like I just can't even imagine like everything that you've had to deal with to
Mhm.
really try and get your life back on track.
Well, I'm on a bunch of medications that are mostly prophylactic now. They're there to, protect my kidneys, prevent my heart from having any further damage. Neurologically, there's not much they can do, but we do know that doing intensive learning of any type, whether it's just reading or learning a new skill, like learning to draw or anything like that, playing a musical instrument, helps the brain a lot with a process called neuroplasty, which is rewiring your brain and activating new synapses and things like that. What intermittent fasting does is it accelerates a process we have in the body called autophagy. And autophagy is a system that cleans out all the gummed up proteins that get broken up in your cells. So at the cellular level, you can't feel it. You don't even know it's happening, but it is happening. And basically, it's like Drano for your cellular system. It gets rid of all those proteins and makes your cells run more efficiently. What it also does is it gets rid of scar tissues. So any residual scar tissue that was in my brain from these impacts is getting nibbled away by this autophagy process. And there's lots of numbers in the fasting world about how it accelerates the autophagy process and makes you heal faster. But you can see it at work in your body. Scars disappear. Like I can't tell you how many women we've talked to that have had cesareans, and 30 years after they've had it, their scars disappear. Like it's crazy. It just goes after any type of protein in the body that's not being helpful, and excuse me, and it gets rid of it. Um, According to Dr. Mark Matson from Johns Hopkins, when you fast, it also activates these epigenetic or genetic subsystems in your body, and it creates these neurotropic factors, which also help your nervous system and provide the building blocks for your brain and nervous system to repair each other. So intermittent fasting isn't just for weight loss. It generally helps you repair your body first, and then it gets around to the weight loss part of it.
So walk me through your fasting regimen, because I know there's a lot of different kinds of fasting. Um, what have you found to be the most effective to get your body into autophagy?
Um, right now, I'm doing mostly what's called an 18-6. So I fast for 18 hours a day, and then I have a 6-hour eating window. But I usually only eat one meal in that 6 hours. So while you have permission to eat for 6 hours, you're not supposed to eat for 6 hours continuously. Um, when I first got sick, and this I only started in 2018. I started off at 12-12 because we really didn't know what my body was going to respond like to all this trauma in addition. So very quickly, I went from doing a 12-12 to within 3 months, I was doing 23-1s. Like I was fasting 23 hours and eating one meal a day, or as they call it, OMAD. And now I'm just recovering from another bout of COVID. So I'm hoping to go back to some alternate day fasting, which I had done previously, which would be like a Sunday night, Sunday evening until Tuesday afternoon. So anywhere between 33 and 42-hour fasts. And then you break the fast with at least 2 substantial meals. So your body doesn't think you're starving and, knock down your metabolism again. So that's the goal. Hopefully next month I'll be back to that.
You said that you've been trying to help people, well, by sharing your story, and really there's more to just having heart issues and brain injuries. There's more that goes along with that. Just through my experience in the veteran and first responder community, traumatic brain injuries go hand in hand with PTSD, and there's a lot of issues that go along with traumatic brain injuries. And it sounds like you've had quite a few. So I would say that you've got some experience with the emotional side of things, because it really disrupts so many different things in your life and in your body. So
it disrupts everything.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate that I have a good therapist that I was working with long before this started. And I think everybody should have a therapist, somebody to bounce things off, somebody wiser than you, hopefully, or that isn't afraid to give you different perspectives and say, maybe you should consider this, maybe you should consider that. I'm fairly religious. I'm on the Orthodox Jewish side of things. So I have a group of guys that I learn with 4 or 5 times a week, which helps a lot with battling through the PTSD and the faith. But to be honest, your mindset is everything. It's what makes you or breaks you. And if you have a positive mindset, you can, get through almost anything. And I know it's not the easiest thing to do, because there's all these things working against you to not have a positive mindset. I guess I've got a little bit of a resilience gene that I inherited from my parents, who had a pretty hard life. And while they can't teach you to be resilient, they were an obvious example to me of how to battle through life and stay positive. So I guess I got that partially genetically, partially through osmosis. And I just don't see any alternative as to thinking there's going to be a positive outcome out of this. I may not know what it is. There's that old adage, man plans and God laughs. So, who knows if this is supposed to be the path I'm on, but it feels right. And I seem to be positively impacting people. So I'm going to continue on it until I see signs that I should go some other route.
Do you mind sharing with the audience, this example that your parents set for you? What was it about their life that really, showed you there's adversity, and then there's, a decision to be made? Either that adversity is overcome and you move on and you have a positive outlook on life, or sometimes adversity destroys people. The same kind of experience can help somebody become more self-aware and go, what, like, yes, I experienced this, but I made it through, and now I'm here, and I'm thankful that I'm in the spot that I'm in, and that experience showed me and taught me this. Whereas other people will go, oh, my life is terrible, look at what just happened to me, I don't know how I can go on.
Uh, I think you have to have outside influences uh, as a factor for sure that are, saying that's not the right behavior to have. This is the right behavior, and you should be moving towards that. It might take you a while. My dad had horrible rheumatoid arthritis. Because of seeing him in the hospital and other people in the hospital because of it, his joints were fused, his hands, every joint in his body. He was in pain 24/7, like ridiculous amounts of pain. And yet he was a salesperson and he tried to go to work as much as he could. So, our income as a family was very disruptive. And when you're in pain, you're not in a good mood. But yet, he somehow found time to sit on the board of our synagogue and to help out basically anybody who ever asked for help. Uh, in spite of the fact that he himself was in a horrible place. My mom had suffered from depression pretty much her entire life. And, 40, 50, 60 years ago, there were not a lot of options for people with depression. And she just battled through it. The sicker my dad got, my mom had to go back into the workforce. And, she's getting a double whammy, all the pressure from home, all the pressure from the depression, all the pressure from learning these new jobs and everything. And yet she just kept going. I mean, she was probably in her late 40s and she learned how to drive. you know um so they just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I don't think I was cognizant of what they were doing as a kid, and understanding the battles they were going through. But at some level, I must have absorbed it and understood it, because that's what I'm doing now. And that's what I'm trying to share with other people.
For the listeners, your book, do you have an expected release date?
Yes. The expected release date is late February or early March 2023. And it's, it'll be on all the digital platforms and everything like that. And hopefully by that time, the world will be a little more normal and I'll be able to go on an actual book signing tour, which would be fun, and be able to meet all these people face to face. Because as great as it is reaching out to people on podcasts, it's even better when you can physically be in front of somebody and help influence them by that way.
So what's the main message that you convey through your book?
You can't imagine how bad things can get, and yet you can come through them. There's a Holocaust survivor, famous psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl, who, after going through the camps and all those horrors, he came up with a simple operating theory. If you have hope, you can conquer anything. And it's just, getting yourself to believe that there's hope. It makes such a difference in your mindset and how you operate. And unlike our current supply chain, there is no shortage of hope to be had. It's out there. You just have to grab it. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying it's easy to do. It's definitely not easy, but it is available.
I actually talk about Viktor Frankl in my book. He had quite an influence on my life. One of my professors in college, after the death of my brother and struggling with PTSD, this particular professor said that I should read A Man's Search for Meaning, that I would really get a lot out of it. And so I had a lot of respect for this particular professor, and bought the book, read it in a weekend, and it really did change my life. I don't know how many times I've read it now, but I mean, it's just a phenomenal story. And that, I mean, it really is a message of hope. And just, I'd say that being able to endure so much pain and hardship and push through. And he experienced survivor's guilt and
Hmm.
just the seeing all these people that you would put on a pedestal higher than you, value them more than you value your own life, and they lose theirs and you get to keep yours. And
Hmm.
it's like, why them and not me? And what is my purpose? And it's just such a great book walking through that process. And that his process is called logotherapy. And I I don't know, I just really I love it when somebody that I interview mentions Viktor Frankl, because it's like, yes, this
Hmm.
is uh, this is somebody that understands adversity doesn't mean failure, or this is it. It's just uh, the experience that you're having right now that can lead to so many other things that are better than what we're experiencing right now. We
For
just
sure.
we just have to have that hope.
Hmm. And you never know which is going to be the right tool to help you. For you, it was the book. For me, it's been intermittent fasting. Um, I mean, it's been life changing for me. I mean, the trauma I went through obviously was life changing, but this is, you know, the rebound. I didn't expect all the positive mental health things, because when it was presented to me, it was more for weight loss. I went into my cardiologist for a checkup one day, and I'm sitting in the exam room, and he walks in and he throws this book at me, and he says, "Buy this, read this, do this." And so this is the book. It's been on the New York Times bestseller for a long time, um, and this is what started pretty much the current groundswell of intermittent fasting.
And so,
And
for those listening that aren't
oh,
watching
sorry,
on YouTube, what the name, the title of the book that you just showed is the
the
obese.
obesity the obesity code by Dr. Jason Fung. He's a nephrologist, kidney specialist out of Toronto, and um, a lot of his patients were people who had type 2 diabetes and were losing their kidneys and limbs and stuff because of the diabetes epidemic. And he was sick of it, and he did some research, and he boiled it down to, if you can get your basal insulin levels down, your body can recover from type 2 diabetes, which is contrary to what most of the doctors will tell you. We're going to start jabbing you with insulin. You're going to be on this for the rest of your life, and your life's going to crater. You're going to have if you get to old age, it's going to be horrible for you. And we know it's not true. And I know it's not true because I found out I was type 2 diabetic when all this stuff happened to me in 2009. Within 6 months of me starting to fast, I was no longer type 2 diabetic. My blood sugars were in the normal range.
Wow.
So I went off insulin in 6 months. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible.
So it was a
Uh,
game changer.
yeah, I'm trying to think. I know I've talked with other individuals about the benefits of fasting, but to have somebody like you that has had such positive life-changing results from fasting and following that lifestyle is pretty cool. I mean, kudos to you. I mean, I don't know. I think I could probably do it.
Mhm. Most people can, but again, it's like most types of exercise. You never know which type of exercise is going to benefit you the most, and which fasting protocol is going to benefit you the most. So some people respond better to the longer fasts. Some people get away with doing the basic 16-8, and they find that's just the little tweak they need to get you back to what you need. I guess if I want to break it down, intermittent fasting starts by getting your insulin lowered. But once your insulin gets lowered, most of your other hormones start to fall into line to where they're supposed to be, into their normal operating ranges. And that's when you start to see the huge benefits and the reduction of inflammation and your body starting to heal and all that. For women in particular, it starts you pumping growth hormone like when you're a teenager. And for women, that's so important because that's what drives your bone density. And when women in particular have a problem with bone density and osteoporosis and stuff like that. And we see women just, reversing conditions, reversing their osteoarthritis. It's I'd say it's miraculous, but it's not. It's the way we were designed to work.
Just through fasting 16 hours a day, people are able to reverse those ailments?
Yes, it's such a laundry list. Just for myself, I was asthmatic. My asthma went away. I had sleep apnea. It went away. I had diabetic retinopathy. So, I had bleeding and fluids in the eye. And within 8 months, the eye surgeon said, you don't have to come see me anymore. This has entirely reversed itself.
Wow.
We know of women who had PCOS, the polycystic ovary syndrome that prevents them from having children, reversed because it's driven by insulin, higher levels of insulin. It's just an endless list. Anything from skin tags to eczema and psoriasis disappearing, to reverses of rheumatoid arthritis, to reverses of diabetes and all sorts of things.
It's incredible.
It does. I mean, on the surface, if you're hearing this for the first time, I totally understand people saying it's too good to be true. And that's what I thought, because initially it was presented to me as a weight loss tool. But then all these other things started happening. And I ended up being a moderator in a Facebook group for intermittent fasting, based on the work of Jen Stevens. And she ended up, this Facebook group had about 335,000 members. And there aren't too many questions about fasting I didn't see. It was also about 96% women. I was the only male moderator in there, but everything from women's cycles being normalized to migraines disappearing to never getting a cold anymore or anything like that. Wow. So, if you see that in one or two people out of a sample size, you say, okay, it's kind of fluky. But when you're seeing thousands of people on a regular basis report these things, it's not anecdotal anymore. It's actually what's happening in the real world. And, we're just a small fraction of the intermittent fasting world in that group. There's people like Dr. Fung who have much bigger groups, and they see the same things.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. So in your book, clearly you talk about fasting, but there's more to your book than just you being an advocate for fasting. Mm-hmm. What else could readers expect if they purchase your book when it's released?
They'll find the craziest story, a medical story that anybody's ever read. Even doctors don't believe the story when I tell them. I actually have two pacemakers in me right now running concurrently because one keeps failing and the other is a backup.
Wow.
And so at the time I was told I was one of 8 people in the world that had this setup. And it wasn't planned. The initial plan of that surgery was to put in an entire new pacemaker and disconnect the old one. But when they tried to install the new pacemaker, they couldn't thread the wires or the leads into my heart. So they only had one of the two leads connected, and they couldn't leave me like that. Otherwise, I'd be dead. So on the fly, the surgeon had to figure out, what do we do now? Like, we can't leave him with the failing one, and we can't install the new one. So he hooked it up so that the new pacemaker senses when the old one fails. And it's not an exact science, and it probably took 18 months of adjustments to prevent me from having further syncopes. It would only be 4 or 5 seconds, but I could be sitting on the couch, and then you're just gone, and then you're waking up. Your podcast is called From Embers to Excellence, and if you watch TV or any of the movies like Grey's Anatomy or any of those shows, you're pretty much being pumped with, there's excellence in the medical system. And unfortunately, it's like any other industry. And, there's your super high performers, and there's like, how the hell did you get hired kind of performers. Yeah. And at the front end of my adventures, I had a lot of the, how the hell did you get hired and why haven't you been fired yet performers. Yeah. And I don't want to bash the medical system. People are trying. I don't think there's any ill intent there, but it's just like any other system. And you can only hope that you get the better performers. You have to learn to advocate for yourself, and hope that the doctors will listen to you, which they often don't. And they often didn't listen to me. When I first got sick, I told my cousin, who's an internist, what was happening to me. In 5 seconds, he said, "You need a pacemaker." And I went to the resident on call in the ward, and I said, "I just talked to my cousin. He's an internist. He's got 25 years experience. This is what he told me." And they said, nah, can't be it. So.
Jeez. That's insane.
Yeah. So I ran into a lot of stuff like that. People will find a lot of that stuff pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. Well, for those listening that want to keep an eye out for your book and want to connect with you and I don't know, possibly learn more about are you still involved with the Facebook group as a moderator, the fasting one?
We've shuttered that one and have moved to a smaller, more intimate group that Jen runs. And it's jenstevens.com/community. And this one's fee-based. It's not a lot. It's like, $5 a month or something, if I remember correctly. But then in that group, you get to deal with Jen more directly than you would when there was 335,000 members. Yeah. All the information and all the questions that were from the Delay Don't Deny group, those are still up and available for people to do research. So it's the Delay Don't Deny book support group on Facebook. So Jen's written a few bestsellers, and again, I'm putting this up there. So her latest bestseller is Fast, Feast, Repeat by Jen Stevens. And
that's Jen with a G, Gin Stevens, Stephens.
Yes, Jen like the beverage. And, by occupation, she was a teacher for a long time. So she's very good at relaying messages and boiling down things to digestible bites. That's a little intermittent fasting humor. But this book differs from most of the other books because it actually tells you how to do all the different fasting protocols and how to tweak things if what you've chosen isn't working for you. So very, very helpful. And it, most of what I've learned from fasting has been from her and her podcasts, and just being able to have access to her. So phenomenal person. It turned into a business for her, but that wasn't her original intent. It was just to set up a support system for herself while she was trying to figure out intermittent fasting.
Wow.
So
no, that's really cool. So for those that want to connect with you and keep their eye out for your book, what's the best place for people to connect with you?
Probably through my Instagram, where I'm repeatedly dead Fred. So if you just Google that, you'll come to it. So it's still relatively new. I've only had it up for a couple months, so there's not a ton of content yet, but there will be.
Awesome. All right. And so be on the lookout for what's the title of your book again?
The Summer I Died 20 Times.
20 times or 29 times?
Well, 20 times that summer, but with the subsequent failures of the pacemakers and the surgeries, it went to 29, and then it went over and above that. So
jeez. Okay, so the title of the book is The Summer I Died 20 Times?
Yes.
All right, so you guys keep an eye out for Fred's book, and check him out on Instagram at Repeatedly Dead Fred. That's pretty catchy, so
yeah, a friend came up with that.
It's pretty funny. Well, Fred, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. I'm actually going to do a little more digging, and the fasting sounds like something that I don't know, could really benefit me. Not that I'm unhealthy, but I have high cholesterol, and there's some inflammation stuff that I'm just really curious. I'll try anything, and if it's beneficial, then I'll talk about it on here too.
Sure. Can I talk about inflammation a little bit just before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
So before I started fasting, every day, every joint in my body ached. And I just attributed that to, coming from a lineage of my dad having rheumatoid arthritis and having been really overweight and, playing a lot of contact sports. And that was just the natural progression. Since probably 3 months after I started fasting, I don't have an ache or pain in my body. It is like everything has gone away. Even after 3 bouts of COVID and other surgeries and everything like that, nothing, absolutely nothing.
Wow.
So
that's insane.
Yeah,
I will be digging a little bit deeper, because, well, by that I mean I'm gonna figure out which form of fasting is recommended for me and my body type, and see how it goes. So thank you so much, Fred.
You're welcome. Always check with your appropriate medical professionals, because when you fast, you might have to adjust certain medications if you're on, or if you had an eating disorder, or if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Fasting is not the right tool for you.
All right, cool. Well, again, thank you so much, Fred. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of your wisdom with us.
My pleasure. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of From Embers to Excellence. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on your favorite podcast platform, and visit hollenbachleadership.com for additional content. My goal is and always will be to add value to as many people as possible.
So if I can be of any assistance to you or someone you know, please connect with me via email or on one of my social media accounts, linked on the homepage of my website. Remember, our failures don't define us unless we let them, and the only true measure of a leader is the success of their team.